Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're back in the blueprint catalog, and today I'm going to be showing you 5 machines that require very little redstone to build. We have 2 different farms, being lava water and kelp, as well as some processing machines, and this one over here which is just for fun. So our first one today is going to be the lava and water farms. Now this here is a 3-block version, but we're going to be making the 1-block version today, and it's just to passively generate lava and water at your base. So to get started, we're going to need an area that's 3 by 3 by 5 blocks tall, and that's per farm. And then we're going to need this list of materials here to build one of each. Alright, now that we have our materials, we're going to go ahead and start with both of our cauldrons down here on the bottom with a open space between them. Then we're going to go ahead and grab a temporary block. You can use your building blocks, but I just went ahead and grabbed some planks. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4. Then off of that, we're going to go ahead and place a dripstone block on either side, covering our cauldron. Then on top of that, we're going to use our building blocks, place one on top, each of the dripstone, and then we're going to build around them in a square, just like so. Should look something like this. Then we can knock out our center blocks, like so. Place water in one, lava in the other. We can jump down, remove our temporary blocks, place a piece of pointed dripstone, and that is all you need to get this thing going. Once these cauldrons fill up with whatever source you're using, in this case for lava, you're definitely going to have to wait for a new source block to fill up in the cauldron. The water, you could make an infinite water source. The water one will also produce dripstone if you put it up high enough. You need at least this high to produce another piece of pointed dripstone, but higher is going to produce a lot more. And that's all there is to this little farm. Let's move over to the next one. Now, the next one here is just a simple auto furnace, or auto smelter, or auto cooker, depending on what you're trying to cook down. And you can see it's just your furnace block with a hopper on top, on the back, and underneath, leading into a box, and from a box on top. So each one of these is going to need a 2 by 3 by 4 block tall area, or you can build all 3 of them side by side with a 6 by 3 by 4 block area. So now that we have our materials here, what we're going to start with for either one of these is a chest. One for each. Into that chest, we're going to go ahead and crouch and place a hopper leading into it, like so. Then on top, we're going to add our furnace of choice. If we want to do just food, the smoker is a little bit faster. If you're doing a little bit of everything, obviously you want to use a normal furnace, and blast furnace if you're just doing ores. Then on the back of our furnaces, we're going to go ahead and place another hopper leading into the back, like so. And we can jump up and crouch and place our chests for our fuel sources. This is where we'll go ahead and put any of our coal, or if our lava farm is doing well enough, we can put lava buckets in here and get a little bit better rate. Then on top of each furnace, we're going to go ahead and place another hopper, just like this. And on top of those hoppers, we're going to crouch and jump and place a chest. And just like so. Now, you can leave it like this. The reason that I add a lever to each one of these, like so, is not just to make them look like they're waving at you, but what it does is it actually stops the flow of the hoppers, so you can come in here and pull out materials and you can repair your tools with that, getting the XP bonus, as the furnaces will store XP as you cook things through them. And that's all there really is to each of these. So on the back of them, we're going to go ahead and put our fuel source. In this case, I'm going to be using coal, but you can use whatever you like that burns. Okay, then in our top chest, we're going to add our things to be cooked. So for the smoker, obviously we need raw food. This one can be a little bit of everything, including logs, which will give you charcoal and give you more fuel, or in the blast furnace, any type of metal that needs smelting. Then you can see if we push the lever here, it'll stop the cooking process. Anything that's in here will get stuck, and then you'll be able to pull out this, and you can hear the little chime of XP gain as they will store up the XP that's built in them. Simply flip the levers back into the upright position and it will start flowing back into the chest for you to collect. Now we move on to our third machine, and this one, again, very, very simple. It's just a composter, a couple of hoppers, and a couple of boxes. You can see here, if we check the book, we need a 2 by 1 by 4 blocks tall area and a very low amount of materials needed. So we're going to go ahead and grab out our materials, and we'll start by just placing a chest on the ground here. Into the chest we're going to have a hopper. Take our composter, put that on top. Now we're going to jump on top of our composter here and crouch jump, place a hopper, do the same thing for the other chest, and that's really all there is to it. Then we can take any extra leaf blocks or beetroot seeds or normal seeds, anything that can go in the composter. We're going to place it in this top box here, and it will fill up on its own, producing bonemeal. Bonemeal then gets dropped down in the box below, and it's a good way to clean up your farming area, keep it from getting too full of extra seeds or extra crops that you really don't need. Now, our next machine is a little bit more complicated, does require a little bit more redstone, being that you need an observer, a piston, some actual redstone dust, and a little bit more materials. This is a automated kelp farm. You can build it single block like this, or you can build an entire chain of them together and do them all at once. They would all follow the same basic structure. So for a single block one, we're going to need an area that's 5 blocks by 5 blocks by 6 blocks tall. And over here you can see the list of materials needed. I do believe it does need at least glass on top, but I also use glass as a building block for these type of farms so I can make sure they're working correctly. Now that we have our materials, we can go ahead and start building this. One thing to note is that the kelp will need full source blocks to reach the top. It can make them, and you only technically need a source block at the bottom to plant it and a source block at the top for it to grow into. I'm just using 4 buckets of water to create 4 source blocks, make it a little bit easier on myself. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and place down our chest. And into the chest, we're going to go ahead and place one of our hoppers. Then, on top of that hopper, we're going to place another 1, 2, 3, and 4 like so. Should look something like that. Then next, we're going to give a 1 block space and go ahead and place down our dirt block. Then around our dirt block, what we're going to do is we're going to place down our temporary block that we can delete, like so. And on top of those temporary blocks, we're going to go ahead and put our first layer of glass, like this, off to one side that doesn't have the hoppers. In this case, I'm using the right side of the machine. We're going to go ahead and place our piston. Then we can build up the rest of our glass, like so. Same side that has the piston, we're going to go ahead and place an observer, like so, and then place glass on the back and side, bring that forward, like so, and then another temporary block, either there or there, doesn't really matter, so you can place one in front here like this. And it should look something like that. Then we can go ahead and fill our chamber with water. Now, if you're doing this in survival, you may want to leave one of the columns open and fill it one at a time. Since I'm in creative, I can just do like so, and one on top like this. The water should flow down into the hoppers, and that will carry your kelp down into the box. Then we can place our one piece of kelp. It will grow on its own, so we don't need to add any extra while we build the rest of the farm. Then, off of the glass blocks here, we're going to place one here, place a temporary block behind our piston, and another piece of glass here. Then we can knock out our temporary block and place a piece of redstone against our piston. You see it'll land on top of it. Same thing here. And then should be able to place one against our observer so we don't have to climb back up there. That will give us our power source to knock the kelp down. It will float up the water and down into our chest. Then we can go ahead and remove the last of our temporary blocks as we no longer need them. And this farm is essentially done. It's a passive farm, so you just have to be in the area and it will start growing. You can see this one here started growing again and producing kelp. It's not the fastest, but it is a nice way to do it passively. If you build a whole array of this and expand it out, you don't need to build a single block for each one. You just add to this and basically draw a line with it and then expand your containment for your water accordingly. Alright, now the last one we're building is one that's more just for fun. If you get yourself some music discs, you can build a little automated jukebox. So the lever here will turn the system on, and then if you turn it back off, it will allow you to stop the machine after whatever disc is done playing. An auto dispenser with a bubble lift will carry them back to the top and drop them back down, so that way they can reload into the system. So, for this jukebox, we're going to need an area that's 5 blocks by 5 blocks by 5 blocks tall, and you can see the list of materials we're going to need here. I'm going to be using glass as my build block, but you can use whatever you like. Alright, now that we have our materials, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is, in the center of your 5 by 5 range, we're going to carve out that block and place a piece of soul sand in the ground. This will be the start of our bubble lift. Then facing the soul sand, we want to put our dispenser. And into our dispenser, we want to put a hopper, just like so. Then we can add our building blocks around the outside of the soul sand and place our first bucket of water here, starting our bubble lift. Then on top of our hopper, we're going to go ahead and place our jukebox. Then behind that, we're going to add our building blocks for the second layer, like so. And can add another bucket of water. On top of the jukebox, we're going to add one more hopper and one leading into it like so. And on top of here, we're going to add more building blocks, just like that. And can add our third bucket of water. Then on top of that, we're going to rinse and repeat and add 3 more building blocks, like so. If we crouch and place one over the last hopper, that will give us our wall. And we can place a building block on either side for the water to flow. Add 1 more bucket of water, like so. You can use your solid block as a temporary building block and place glass on top. This will keep the stuff from popping out of the top and getting lost. Break our temporary block, and it should look something like this. Then we can take our solid block, place it next to the hopper, and add our lever. This will keep the system from running when you don't want it to. It will have to play out whatever the last disk in the machine was, but then it will stop it from adding a new disk into the machine. And then lastly, the redstone portion of this, we're going to need a comparator coming off of the dispenser, piece of redstone dust, our repeater, and redstone dust leading all the way around and back into the dispenser like so. Then you pull out some of your favorite music discs, pop them into the hopper system. You can also expand this one more block further and one more block taller and put a chest system in there, so that way you can store more discs. Entirely up to you on that. But then, if we flip this lever, it automatically starts playing. Oh, I do like this one a lot. And with that, our 5 different machines are built, going from very, very simple, low redstone, in fact no redstone, to automated smelting, and over here we have a little bit of actual machinery for farming kelp, and a nice little jukebox to play all our music discs with. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for today's episode. These are farms that I build in almost every world that I create at the beginning, especially the auto furnaces here. They're a great way to repair your tools once you get mending and give you a little bit of an XP bump as they cook through because of their storage of experience capability. So I hope you enjoyed, and as always, until next time, have a good one.